guys, I'm Joe. Today I'm here to talk about something that's been on my mind in the last couple weeks. The Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man. Now, for those of you who haven't been following me for a while, it's about this time last year, a year ago, oh my god, that we found out that Spider-Man was going back to Marvel Studios essentially, and we're getting a new version of Spider-Man. And a couple months after the announcement, June of 2015, I said this on my Facebook page if you want to check it out, but Tom Holland is set to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man. And you know what? I like that idea. I haven't really seen anything that Tom Holland's been in, but from what I've seen of him in interviews, looks like a cool kid. I would say very reminiscent of Peter Parker. He's got that funny, geeky, awkward side to him, from what I can tell anyway. And probably the biggest thing that I can say is that he really looks the part, I would say. He looks like a teenager. From what I understand, he's like 20 years old, but he looks like he's 15, and that is really, really welcome. And also, probably the biggest thing, he looks like a nerd. That's exactly what Peter Parker should look like. Now, I'm not saying that Peter Parker has to look like a troll, but for those people who are against the idea of Tom Holland simply because he looks too much like a nerd, are you insane? Peter Parker is not supposed to look like a pretty boy dreamboat. A lot of fans wanted Dylan O'Brien to be Spider-Man. To be honest with you, I'm glad that didn't happen. Not knocking against Dylan O'Brien by any stretch of the imagination, but when I think about Dylan O'Brien as Spider-Man, I just see Andrew Garfield 2.0. And Marvel, Sony, thanks for not casting him as Spider-Man. Whew. But nevertheless, we got a kid, Tom Holland. Seems like he's going to do his best in the role, and I'm hoping that he can deliver in Civil War and next year in the MCU reboot. So good luck to you, kid. As far as the directors and the writers go, John Watts, don't really know much about him. I know he did this movie called Cop Car with Kevin Bacon. Been wanting to see that for a while, see what he's like as a director. So hopefully he can pull through as director. And I think that Marvel is going to keep Sony at bay if they try to be super controlling like they were the last couple times. I think Marvel's going to say, what did we tell you? This is what happened last time. Don't do that again. Otherwise, the movie's canceled. And from what we can tell so far, Sony's cooperating. Let's hope it stays that way. Besides, if Marvel had any kind of inkling that Sony was going to give them a hard time, they never would have taken the deal. Now the writers go, I can't remember their names, but that one thing that does concern me a little bit is that they're trying to make the idea of Peter Parker a guy who uses humor as a coping mechanism. That's not really what he's all about. I know a lot of Spider-Man fans will try to argue with me and say that, no, he's supposed to be that way. He's supposed to be like Deadpool. No, he's not. Spider-Man is not Deadpool. And Peter Parker is not Deadpool either. You want a good example of why that doesn't work? Watch the Amazing Spider-Man movies, at least for me. He jokes at inappropriate times, and he doesn't take the situation seriously. And he comes off as a bit arrogant and selfish. But that's just me. But if you do like those movies, more power to you. On the other hand, though, with these writers, you gotta give it to Marvel, though. They tend to pull a lot of these people that are kind of out-of-the-box thinking that, at least a lot of the times, it seems to work in their favor, so who knows? Maybe with the right combination, they can make it work. Besides, we won't really start to get a good picture of how that's gonna work until we see the trailer, which might come at the end of the year, since the movie's supposed to come out in July of next year. Who knows? Let's just hope it goes well. Now, as far as the villains go, from what I'm told, Kevin Feige has said that they're going to include a villain that hasn't been shown in the movies yet, but is someone from the Spider-Man comics. And as far as I can tell, we don't know who it is, because the movie's in pre-production. But as far as who I'd like to see, maybe Mysterio, Shocker, the Vulture would be kind of cool. I like the idea of Scorpion because of his personal vendetta against Jonah Jameson. Some people have thought about Morbius. I wouldn't mind Morbius, because after the Twilight movies, vampires could use a bit of a better image, because who wants to see a vampire sparkle like a disco ball? Some have suggested Kraven, which I wouldn't mind seeing him. Some have thought about maybe the Green Goblin should come back. I don't know if we should bring the Green Goblin again, but if they're going to, at least hold off on introducing him as the Goblin until maybe further down the line in a sequel. If you're gonna do that, at least establish Norman Osborn first. Let it grow over time, and then you can bring the Goblin in, and if that's what they want to do. Personally, I would like to see Scorpion or Mysterio. Those are my top two. Mysterio really messes with Spider-Man's head sometimes with the illusions, and even as someone who's watched the 90s show and has read some of the comics, and if you guys have played the Spider-Man 2 video game, Mysterio creates all these images that you think are real at first, but since Mysterio is a special effects artist, you find out that those are fake. And there's one point in the comics, in the early comics from the 60s, Spider-Man feels like he's losing his mind because of all these images that he's seeing. And that he comes into this room where this doctor tries to get him to admit his secret, and he believes that the whole room's upside down. But then as things go on, he starts to realize that those things were all fake, and that the doctor is actually Mysterio trying to expose him as revenge for putting him behind bars the last time that they met. And Mysterio is also kind of a funny character too, like, woohoo, yeah! Scorpion, I would say, would be a really good choice because he doesn't necessarily have a personal connection to Peter Parker or Spider-Man. It's mostly towards Jonah Jameson, because Jonah Jameson comes up with the idea of a superpowered being to defeat Spider-Man. So he chose the idea of the Scorpion along with his professor, Dr. Stillwell, since according to that character in the 90s show, I guess, was the natural predator of the spider. I mean, I don't know if that's the case in real life, but it would make sense since Scorpion's a lot stronger than Spider-Man in speed and abilities. But then certain things start to happen to Scorpion where he can't get out of the suit and his mutations start to get worse and worse, and he goes after Jonah Jameson. And since Jameson is Spider-Man's rival, paints Spider-Man in a bad light in his newspaper, Spider-Man unfortunately has to save him regardless of how he feels about him. So I like that little dynamic right there, and if that's the case, if they're going with the Scorpion, hopefully they can make it work. And as I've said before, some have suggested Kraven, others suggested maybe the Vulture, some even suggested the Sinister Six. I don't know about the Sinister Six. There's no really big reason for them to not include the Sinister Six, because if you think about this, a lot of Spider-Man's bad guys are really not that emotionally interesting. You got guys like Green Goblin or Venom or the Lizard or Scorpion like I mentioned before, but a lot of Spider-Man's enemies are just a bunch of bank robbers and larcenists where certain things happen to them where they gain their powers and they decide to take advantage of them by doing all this bad stuff. And really the only reason that they seem to hate Spider-Man is because he just gets in their way one too many times and they decide, screw it, I can't do anything as long as Spider-Man's out there, I gotta stop him. Spider-Man 2? And the Spectacular Spider-Man series, from what I've seen so far, has done that very well. You don't need to have a villain get mad at Spider-Man because he forgot his name, or get mad at Spider-Man because he wouldn't give him a few lousy drops of blood. All you really need to do is set up this whole struggle. Is Spider-Man going to be able to defeat these guys so he can either get to school on time, get to Mary Jane's play, show up to a date with Gwen Stacy, or get home in time to make sure that his Aunt May hasn't had another heart attack? That's really all you need to do with most of Spider-Man's bad guys. Most of them anyway. If you want a better detailed video on that, go to Sam's channel and check out his video on who should be the next Spider-Man villain. He said everything that has to be said, but I'm just reiterating some of the points that he made. And since Spider-Man's going to be showing up in Civil War pretty soon, I'm really hoping that Tom Holland's interpretation can be really good, because I recognize that a lot of general audience members are probably just not going to even be interested since Spider-Man's been rebooted one too many times. But on the other hand, if you're introducing him in Civil War, in a small but substantial part, when they see this movie and they see Spider-Man, they'll just go, that's Spider-Man? And he's already Spider-Man? We don't have to sit through the origin again? I want more of that. And since Kevin Feige has said that there's not going to be another origin story, I think that this new version of Spider-Man has a better chance of lasting longer and hopefully reaching a conclusion. Because unfortunately, with the last two series that we've got for Spider-Man, they never got the proper conclusion. Thanks a lot, Sony. But you know what? Like I said before, last year even, if you work with Marvel and listen to their input and work with the director, let him do his share and you do yours, then all will be right with the world. That's pretty much all I gotta say, so thank you guys for watching this video. What do you guys think of this new Spider-Man movie coming up soon? Are you excited? Not so excited? And how do you feel about Tom Holland as Spider-Man? Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are, and I'll see you guys next time.